Everybody who is present, I see who is present here. This is Arseny, and Kirill has got his invitation as well as Pasha, but Pasha has additional um, course, and that's why he will not be present today. He just had written to me about that. Today we have very short presentation. It concerns only 5 first chapters of the book. The Catcher in the Rye. And we are going to discuss here some interesting and very simple points, just like staying at Pencey school, and some reasons for forming out the opinions of Holden Caulfield and his relations to other people. Let me share my screen and show you some slides, and I will dwell on every point of what I've prepared. 1 minute. That's it, I think. Okay, I think it's visible, not bad. And these are episodes of the novel Catcher in the Rye. Where to get citations for your next discussion? I mean discussion on Saturday. There are first 2 chapters. I repeat, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, including. So in chapter number 1, Holden touches the questions of the school, and he's standing on the hill watching the game, and there are several reasons why he is not in the game. The first one, that he feels stranded from school and from every event there, and the first one, I think, is that he had lost all the equipment of fencing team while they were going via some station of the subway there, and he had lost everything there. So they were not in the game, and they have already lost the game in New York, not being in the game. That's why he's standing strand on the hill, and he is watching the game of others. And the weather is very, very, very frosty. So this is the start of chapter 1 and the beginning of his story. Where is he telling his story? Not in New York, of course, not at school. It's already the past occasions of his life. That's why he is telling that he is going to tell about this madman stuff that happened to him around last Christmas, just before he got pretty run down and had to come out here, means in sanatorium, where he was there at the moment, and take it easy, he says. Okay. So he had to come out there and take everything easy. This is the beginning of the story, because there were a lot of pressure which were laid upon that boy. He was actually 16, and the school and teachers of the school where he had stayed that time before Christmas, they were not quite reasonable for Holden Caulfield. He didn't like anything at all at his school, and it was the third school that he had left. First, he had left Wooden School, then came Elkton Hill School, and now it was his school, Pencey School, that he also left. Actually, Holden Caulfield, and you will find it in the first 5 chapters, tells a little bit about his family and about his origin. He originated from a very well positioned, socially positioned family. He was the son of a governor of New York. And there were some typical occasions which had passed in his life before, and there were 2 deaths. One death was of his younger brother, who was 3 years younger than him, and he had died that time of leukemia, means of cancer, and it was the death of his a schoolmate, the boy whom he had known, and of course, it influenced greatly his opinions and his way of thinking and way of perception of the reality. So let's start with the school ads, and he was that time at Pencey school. That was his last school that he was telling us about, and that school gave advertising quite attractive at first glance, but it was not supported. This attractiveness was not supported by reality. To begin with, the school ads contained some pictures of galloping horses and some jockeys on the horses. Yeah, and Holden noticed that there was any or no horse around maybe 100 miles. Yes, and there were no horse at all, no horse school, nothing like that, no hippodrome, and that's why he said it was phony ad. It was phony ad means it lied about school. Second of all, it was written that they molded gentlemen-like young boys, and they learned them how to behave in the society, etc. But everything that Holden noticed there at school, up to his mind, yes, it was showing off. And he told in these first chapters that those boys liked to wear gentleman-like suits with very broad shoulders, yes, and those so to say, aristocratic shoes, polished and white and black sometimes, according to the fashion that of that time. And their fathers were investors into that school, and everybody was very glad to meet every Sunday on the day of parents. And before the coming day of parents on Saturday night, all the children at school were given for dinner a steak, so that the next day when parents would come, they would ask, "And what did you eat yesterday for your dinner?" The boy would answer, "Steak." It Holden supposed that it was very, very phony situation, that everybody lied, because steak was given only once a week on Saturday night, so for Saturday dinner. Oh, yes. And he didn't like it as well, not because he liked to eat. Of course, he liked to eat. He did, but because it was cheating all the time. And there was one of the boys' father, Ossenberger. Their family had started some very, very profitable business connected with bearing people, and Holden told about that quite in an artificial way, yeah, mocking them because they pretended to be very wealthy, very well situated, very well positioned in the society. But he disgraced them for telling all the time lies, for showing off, for making themselves higher, ranking themselves higher than they had really the situation in the society. And that's why he told a lot of funny stories. And the only his notice is worth to be mentioned here. It's like this Ossenberger came to school, and the headmaster and all the boys were standing in a row and in a locomotive, laughing or smiling faces. And he said that so sarcastically that Ossenberger gave a pile of duffs to school, so that with his money, one dome was built where junior and senior school children dwelt and slept. It was Ossenberger Dome. That's it. And uh, so, what about school? The school image for Holden Caulfield was very poor, and school reality was just like not reality for Holden. He didn't feel like to be the part of that reality. He always criticized his roommates, and he didn't like them. They had a lot of negative traits from his point of view, and somebody didn't write like this thread later. Yes, thread later. He didn't like any. He didn't like to write any composition. He was very sexy. He was going to date girls, but he asked Holden each time to write composition for him because Holden was very well educated and he read a lot of books, and his language was very rich and he could write very good composition, but it was forgery, and forgery prospered at school, no problem whichever. Yes, and as about school investors, I've told, and at the end of this staying on the hill, let's come back to chapter 1. Holden decided to visit his history teacher, old Spencer, who was caught with grippe or with influenza. So he was running as fast as he could because it was very frosty, and he found himself standing at the gate of the house of his teacher. Teacher was really ill. He wore his home dress, and Holden was greatly disappointed seeing his teacher in such a very lamented position. Yes, with his chest bared, with his legs, yes, and barefooted, and drinking tea. And that old Spencer tried to give him hot tea with lemon or with honey, and Holden was invading that all the time. Yes, go saying to him that he had no time, he had to go, he would like to be in New York already. And old Spencer tried to bring him to his mind again, said, wow, would you think about your future guy, etc., etc. And Spencer, that was Spencer, Mr. Spencer, who asked the reason why Holden actually had left already 2 schools and was leaving the last school where they were that time. Holden said that thinking about future made him feel dead, like dead, and he wouldn't like to have a thought about the future at all. That was Holden, and he didn't want to be an adult. He didn't want to grow up. He didn't want to take part in real life. That's why he escaped. He tried to escape from what is going on from the development of real situation, life situation, and it was quite unnecessary for him, maybe. So Holden and other guys at school, actually Holden didn't have friends at school. He, of course, he communicated with everybody. They irritated him greatly. One was chatting all the time. Another was pressing out his pimps. The other was very, very untidy, etc. And the boys were chatting with each other or giving some commands to each other. He didn't like that way. Also, he said that he had a friend. It was Mel Broussard. He was on the wrestling team, and they liked to play with him, either football or even snowballs. And it was his playing snowballs that he, with Mel Broussard, that he noticed. It was very childish, but everybody was really enjoying themselves. So that boy at 16, he liked to be childish. He liked to be innocent inside. He didn't like that people pretended to be older than they were and to grow quicker than it should be. Yeah, and everything just seemed to him phony, 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 and all that. He said that sort of all that he uses all the time in the novel. Holden wants to be empathic with other people, and he tries to remember that girl who once lived next to his house, and she was quite well. She danced for 2 hours every day. She trained ballet for her legs, and they used to play checkers with her, but she never used skins, and she put skins in the back row and never touched them as she got them during the game. So when his roommate noticed once that he would like to date that girl, yeah, he was astonished. I mean, Holden, and he tried to send her his greetings. Of course, Threadlater would not give her his greetings, Holden greetings, because he thought himself to be the most sexual guy in the whole world, and he was very, very attentive about his outlook. That's Threadlater. So he went to date the girl without Holden. Holden even wanted to go and to greet her and to ask her what was her life, but he never did that. Why? Nobody understands. Maybe he didn't want to encounter his girlfriend in such an age, in such a situation, in such school, in such reality. And he felt exaggerated a little bit about his friends because they awake all the time his memories, his very sensual nature or inside nature. He likes to be back to his childhood, to remember his friends there, and he thinks that such a reality, such a sensual life for him was very rare, very rare those days, as he was 16, and he tried to find sense with anybody at school, but he could not find this sincerity with teachers, either teachers or his roommates or his classmates, and they were all crooks there. People just just stole his winter coat with his winter gloves, and nobody told anybody to him just vanished. His dress was just vanished. It was very cold, and he said about that in the first chapter that they were all crooks at that school, of course. So we have discussed some vital moments of the presentation that you had to give on Saturday. And I think it would be nice for you to get ready. I tried on my part to tell you everything about that. And I am waiting on your side good presentation and good vocabulary about Holden Caulfield. So here I say bye bye and see you on Saturday.